What's a mook?
A mook? What's a mook?
I don't know.
What's a mook?
On the subject of Dracula, maybe we should talk about the beloved film Bram Stoker's Dracula, because I know there's a lot of people who love that, and I'm amongst them. Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves and Francis Ford Coppola. The Francis Ford Coppola movie.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, An Interview with a Vampire. Well, okay, and then of course, because Sleepy Hollow is also, I think, a 90s movie. But those are maybe the three, to me, like the best Gothic horror movies of the 90s, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't find it very scary at all, but just I love the look of it.
Me too.
The
whole and again, that's like a hard R movie too, right? So
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
It's a movie that really goes places. Like it goes into these dark places that some others dare not.
I mean, there's there's werewolf Dracula raping Mina, Lucy. Yeah. So that was a little bit, you didn't really get some of that in some of the previous Draculas.
Yeah, no, you got to appreciate a movie that really goes there, right? Because if it's a movie that's about dark themes, it should go to dark places, right?
Yeah.
And it probably does it more than most other movies that I can think of.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of I feel the only thing that's a little bit watered down as a horror movie with the Bram Stoker one is like they're definitely going for making this the love story Dracula movie.
Oh, right.
And so it does, to me, it does get a little bit too sentimental near the end. Dracula's kind of like fleeing, and there's horse and buggies chasing his horse and buggy, and Winona Ryder kind of finally is the one to kind of take out Dracula, and it felt like I was watching Romeo and Juliet at the end or something. But it also stands out because there's not a lot of other Dracula movies that kind of do really go for the love story element. There's a late 1970s Dracula movie that kind of goes a little bit for the romantic stuff.
Well, I kind of do feel like that's a big part of who he kind of is as a character to some degree.
I'm not sure. I don't.
Maybe just been
know
like the impression that I've gotten from various sources over the years. But I think of vampires as being kind of these romantic creatures in a way. Yeah,
they have like the powers of like seduction and there is this weird kind of like soulmate thing between Dracula and Mina, and he kind of uses his seduction but to make them just his victim as opposed to trying to embrace his long lost love. I think they did push the love story element a little bit more than maybe what was in the book, where in the book he is kind of not really meant to be a sympathetic character. Mm-hmm. Like I'm trying to think of what that Bram Stoker's movie would have been like if they didn't go there.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it certainly doesn't ruin the movie for me. Kind of like the part of the movie that I kind of get a little bit bored with and almost want to like turn the movie off is like almost like towards the end when there's like the big chase sequence.
Well, you know what else I will say about it is I find it very unmemorable in the sense that I've seen that movie a good 3, maybe 4 times now. And I'm still like, every time I put it on, I'm like, oh yeah, that happens in this. It's almost like I'm watching it for the first time again every time. It's like I sort of absorb the movie in kind of this dreamlike state, but I don't seem to ever retain a lot of the details of what goes on, the plot points and stuff. That type of movie. There's a number of movies that are like that where I really had to watch them several times, sort of in a row even, to even kind of follow the story or get what they were about.
It doesn't end on a creepy note, as most horror movies do. And it almost doesn't even really end in a fulfilling way where everything's kind of like wrapped up. Like you're kind of like, okay, well, Dracula's dead. Is Mina now going to just try to forget everything that happened and just run off with Jonathan, because that's not even like really like the vibe you're getting. You're kind of getting the vibe that like, no, she was still in love with Dracula. And then it kind of, the last kind of shot is I think just like kind of like a mural on this like the ceiling of like a chapel or whatever it was that Dracula was killed in. And it's, from what I remember, isn't it like a mural of like Dracula and his like wife like embracing each other or
I'm gonna take your word for it.
I think that's how it ends.
Because again, that's the sort of detail that I would have totally escaped.
And then it feels like they were kind of trying to create this like real like kind of balance to getting like both the male and female audiences into the movie for different reasons. It almost felt like they were trying to get the guys in with the gore and the horror stuff, but then be
not to
like,
mention
hey,
all the
like stay around, ladies. It's a love story. Don't forget. And that's kind of like what the final note is. I'm just sort of like, it's just, yeah, for a horror movie, I think it's a bit odd to kind of end it on a sentimental love note. I don't even mind a happy ending for a horror movie, but when it's kind of like a love story ending, I'm kind of like, isn't this Dracula? I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, there's great. I love the costumes in that movie.
Well, this is just the thing, right? Is I think I just absorb it as an experience, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah.
But then I kind of forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember having the experience more than what the actual thing was about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's got like the great set pieces, and also like the music. I love when I was like maybe 11 or 12, like a friend of mine gave me like the soundtrack as a birthday gift, and I would like listen to that soundtrack while like imagining and writing my own vampire projects, because I couldn't like listen to that music and not just think about really just like kind of interesting kind of, I don't know, vampire vibes.
Wojciech Kilar.
His theme in Bram Stoker's Dracula later got used in like a number of like movie trailers for other movies.
Oh, okay.
But
I should give this a listen and just like drive around with it. Although, so we were about to touch on a movie that I personally really, really love. One of my favorite, probably like one of my favorite films. And it seems like I've grown to love this movie more and more as time has gone on. But that was you touched on it very briefly. Interview with the Vampire. Yeah.
Those two movies were made so close together. I always kind of put them together in a way. And I don't know, vampire movies were like popular in my house growing up. And so there was always like, we would often have like the classic debate of like, what's better, Bram Stoker's Dracula or Interview with the Vampire? And it's like,
I know which one I prefer for sure.
Yeah.
And again, it's partially because I find it more memorable. Like I can actually, kind of recount the events of.
Well, that's the proper way to do a love story vampire movie. I found it was done much better than the way of kind of forcing it more in the Dracula one.
And I mean, Interview with the Vampire still has quite a bit of dark things. I don't know what it's rated. I
think it's rated R.
It probably is. Yeah. I remember watching it the first time and not totally like I liked it. Didn't totally love it, and then it was like through subsequent viewings that I came to appreciate it more and more and be like, yeah, I realize now that I actually really do like this movie. Anytime you take a journey of like a long stretch of time, I don't know, there's something very enchanting about that, about them going through these different time periods and these different places and stuff. I like the voiceover narration and how he kind of tells the story and just the whole setup of the thing, how you start out in modern day San Francisco, and he's giving this strange, bizarre interview to this journalist or whatever he is. It sets up this kind of calm setting in this room. You're about to be swept away on this very romantic adventure, I guess. a dark romantic adventure.
Even just kind of thinking about the opening of a movie with the credits, and we're just kind of like going through like the city at night, choir orchestrated music playing.
Man, the music is so good.
It's just like, it's just setting you up for like what's going to just be like a great movie. I mean, I bet it probably got a few like Oscar noms for like effects and things like that. But it kind of is like, it's kind of like an Oscar kind of vampire movie. Just horror movies in general kind of get snubbed for Oscars. But when you kind of think about it, like it kind of has a lot of the traits of kind of like a biopic. Generations of just these different eras. It's well written, it's well acted, like everything is very believable about the movie. The only part of the movie that's maybe like tonally a little bit different and a little bit cheesy, and it doesn't ruin the movie, but it's maybe like the very end.
Oh, I like that too though, actually. It ends on a Guns N' Roses cover of Sympathy for the Devil, which I think is like fucking awesome. It brings you right back into the modern times, which is very cool, because again, I like this movie does such a great job. I love it when a movie does a great job of just drawing me in and then sweeping me away, and that's exactly what this movie does. It takes you back in time and you go on this journey with these characters. You get to see them live their lives, you get to see them, and then it brings you back to ending up where we began.
It's rewatchable. Like you can just watch it a bunch of times and just not get sick of it. At least, I don't know, I don't.
Again, every time I watch it, like, it's hard to not sit through it. Like, I just wanted to watch like some scene for reference, and now I'm like watching the whole movie. Yeah, I remember the author Anne Rice. She had quite a lot of praise for Tom Cruise as Lestat.
Well,
I think she wasn't too pleased about him being cast.
No, and she was very open about that. Like she was basically like crapping on the whole thing, and they were like, "Well, wait, you haven't seen the movie yet."
Yeah,
because she had very particular people like in mind, and to be fair, like at that particular time, especially with Tom Cruise's career, I could understand why she would feel that way.
Yeah, for sure. He wouldn't have been an obvious choice. Yeah. And
I actually think it's one of his best performances.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. Definitely. It's because Tom Cruise, but he's not like a character actor. He often plays, a version of himself, kind of. But, but in that, he's fantastic, and he disappears right into the role. He's really good. I would agree that it's probably one of his best roles.
It's also got I love the subtle makeup, like the vampire makeup that Stan Winston did.
He did that too.
Yeah,
right?
which you'd think it's almost like a waste of his skills because Stan Winston is so into doing such crazy Terminators and
it is pretty
dinosaurs.
Subtle.
Yeah, but it's just there's that like slight little like when they haven't eaten for a while and you see like the little like veins just kind of underneath the skin. Just stuff like that and
their eyes obviously are like these creepy eyes. The pale veiny skin. But they also, he probably also did some of the effects, like for instance, the charred bodies, I would imagine.
I'm sure of it. Yeah.
All that type of stuff. So there is some stuff in there that's still.
Well, even like when Tom Cruise kind of, they kind of attempt to kill him and he kind of comes back and he's even kind of more rotten looking.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty elaborate.
Yeah.
I'm just checking here. So it was nominated for 2 Oscars, one for Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, and one for Best Score.
Oh, okay. I'm glad it was nominated for the score. And
me too. Yeah, so they were nominated. They didn't win.
You never get the respect for the horror. Not from the Oscars. Yeah. Not unless you're Silence of the Lambs. It's just so disappointing that they couldn't have continued franchise with that cast and that director. So the next one would have been second book is Lestat the Vampire. It's kind of like each book is sort of through a different vampire's point of view. But there was, I guess, the kind of unofficial sequel, Queen of the Damned, which does have the Lestat character in it. It's just
and where would that have fallen in the series of books?
I think Queen of the Damned was maybe like the 3rd or 4th. But the music is so good.
I know.
It just kind of really carries you along from like scene to scene. It's
very sweeping orchestra, but then it also has these like real horrific strings that he uses. But then there's also these moments of like calm beauty. Like, man, there's this one that I used to just put on repeat and put it into my ears, and I'd walk around at night and just listen to it over and over again.
When you have a movie where almost like all the scenes work and it becomes a rewatchable movie. Those tend to be movies where it's like almost like it doesn't matter what scene you're at. It's like just while you're watching the movie, you're watching exactly the scene you want to be watching until it goes into the next scene. And then that's the scene that you most want to be watching. Like you're not fast forwarding or waiting to like get to a certain scene. You're just enjoying it wherever you're at while watching it. I don't know. That's how I feel like with that one.
Totally. And it's so dynamic, it's such a dynamic film in terms of it taking you on a ride of kind of crazy dramatic moments to moments of like peace and beauty and moments of outright hilarity. Like there's a lot of funny stuff in there. There's things like, vampires are afraid of garlic. And like early on, it establishes kind of what are the myths of vampires versus what are kind of the realities. And it sort of lays out these new rules, I guess.
Whenever I kind of watch a new vampire movie, kind of seeing where they take the lore, what rules they kind of establish.
Yeah, right.
It's different for every movie. But they really go in depths with the Interview with the Vampire. Like, like they very quickly like shut down things like crucifixes and garlic. But they're like, but coffins are part of it,
Yeah, exactly.
And when Louis first becomes a vampire and he's talking about, his old human body dying and then seeing the new world with his vampire eyes and everything's kind of a little bit different. Yeah. The reason Anne Rice wrote the book was because her daughter, who was close to the age of Claudia, died in real life. I have
heard that.
And I believe she died from, it was actually like a blood-related disease. Bring back her kind of like dead daughter, in a fictional
as a character,
where not only would she bring her back, but bring her back as a character who could never die and also never grow up and be preserved as her daughter kind of forever.
It is interesting because there's that scene where female vampire who kind of takes Claudia under her wing.
Who lost her daughter.
Yeah. And then they end up burning in the well together.
Yeah. I mean, that very well could have been in a weird way, like maybe like Anne Rice's like own little kind of morbid fantasy of being like, oh, like I could be reunited with someone like my daughter, and then we just die together, you know? Yeah. Literally to the point that like they become dust. They become one solid chunk of dust. And that's such a great little scene when Louis, I mean, it's such a heartbreaking scene when he discovers them.
Yeah,
and he just kind of caresses her cheek as like the ashes just blow in his face. And they go for like a lot of sentimental, emotional things in that movie, as opposed to just trying to make them scary, one-dimensional vampires.
That's just it, and that's kind of what I mean by dynamic too, right? Is that it's got moments of sentimentality and sensitivity, and others that are totally horrific, and then moments that are adventurous or comedic or whatever.
Claudia, what have we told you?
Never in the house